If you grew up with parents whose moods were unpredictable, you may have developed a superpower to guess what people are feeling and then to try to be the person that will make them happy. For a lot of people who were abused and neglected in childhood, this is the pattern of how they connect. What do you want? How can I be that? But of course, that's not an energy that any sincere person is attracted to. Healthy people fall in love with who you really are. If you're not able to be yourself, or you don't even know who you are, you might be able to attract partners for a little while, but before too long, the fact that you conform to what you think they want is not going to feel good to them, and they pull away. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Cameron, and she writes, "Dear Anna, since my last situationship ended, I feel the same despair, hopelessness, and the void that I already know so well since childhood. It's the third failed attempt of getting into a relationship in 2 years, and coming out of it, I'm more depressed than ever." All right, I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to go in and circle things I want to come back to in a second reading, but let's read through and see what's going on for Cameron. She says, "I'm unable to motivate myself or move on even though I want to. I had one successful long-term relationship in my life, but my then partner didn't want to work on things and left for someone else. I feel this deep sense of loneliness and like I have an energetic block around me that says love is not going to work out for you. I feel like every man is happy to see me walk out of his life when they've had enough of me. Oof. Every time I really want to believe these men when they say they really like me in the beginning, that I'm beautiful and they compliment me on my emotional intelligence, but it's never enough for them to stay or commit to a relationship with me. After some weeks or months, they become unsettled. Right when I start to like them and open up for the possibility to commit, which usually takes some weeks for me." There it is. Okay. "I never fall head over heels for someone. The last guy I was dating for 3 months said that he was seeking a relationship when we met. He wanted us to go on vacation together 4 weeks in and wanted to see me as often as he could. He even said he wanted to have more kids because he already has kids but knew I wanted to have a baby at some point. I tried to play safe and asked him all the questions I needed to know right at the beginning. If he was free from his last relationship, what he wanted in life, or what point he is at, etc., to know what I was getting involved with. It seemed safe. Then suddenly all changed and he became cold. The moment I felt that he was pulling away emotionally, I felt the dreadful anxiety I already know. I knew it was over. I felt it in my gut, but I couldn't end it. I was constantly guessing what went wrong. Suddenly I was not a priority anymore. He was not reaching out in the frequency he did before and made hurtful comments toward me. I felt like I was dying on a soul level and was very imprisoned in that situation. I was unable to leave because I feared the void of being alone. So my mind was constantly occupied with new strategies that I could do to make it work. Letting it go, not reaching out, even talking about it, setting boundaries, but it just got worse. He even said that I could date other men to find someone better. Okay. I felt very used by this man because he took all my emotional energy while giving almost nothing in return. Besides that, I wasn't physically alone, but emotionally and spiritually I was. The reason he ended it was that he's afraid to get hurt again if he fully let himself like me. Every time it feels like I'm showing up fully stacked with all the good things to give, love, attention, affection, etc., that could make a relationship work, and the guys I meet are just feeding themselves with it, they leave me feeling depleted and burned out emotionally. Okay, she says, I'm 34 years old. Everyone around me has kids or getting pregnant. Seeing them building their life, and I cannot seem to even build a relationship that lasts more than 7 months, feels very sad. Every time I fail in another attempt to have a relationship, I feel like I'm the problem, trying to find out how I can solve it, but it's not working, no matter what I do. I want out of this victim cycle, but I don't know how. I feel despair, trying to quit dating altogether, and a few days later I end up doom swiping on the dating apps, which makes the feeling even worse. If only I could end the search for a relationship and be happy by myself. Growing up, I felt very isolated and like I need to be ashamed of myself. I didn't go to the same school as my peers in the village where I grew up, so they made hurtful comments toward me and my family. I felt like we were the outsider of the community. My mother was often stressed, unstable, and violent. Okay. And I was always trying to hide from her and the rest of my family and the people in my village. I tried to make everything right so she wouldn't have any reason to explode. I felt very responsible for the feelings of everyone around me. My father was often absent because of work and couldn't handle my mother's temper. He was never a man of integrity and didn't stand up for us against other members of the family. I think that still haunts me until this day. Every time someone wanted to include me or offer a normal relationship in the past, I wasn't able to participate because I felt like they would lift the secret of me being a total wreck. Coming from a problematic family, I was afraid of closeness. It almost hurt me physically to go into a situation where people were welcoming and didn't seem to see me as an outsider. I was able to change that in the last years through working on myself, through therapy and your videos and self-help books, but now I don't have these healthy encounters anymore. What else can I do? I want out. All right, and that's from Cameron. All right, Cameron, I think I can help. I'm going to tell you a gut feeling I have here because I don't have all the details of your situation, but I sure got a feeling from your letter that something actually was missing here. And it has to do with you keep saying, I've done all the right things to make a relationship. And I can see this thing missing, which is the person of you and the person of the other, of the guys who you see. So let's go through. I'll tell you what you told me. I'm more depressed than ever. I'm not motivated. You had one long-term relationship in your life, but then he didn't want to work on things and left for someone else. So right there, I circled that because those are two different things. He left for someone else. He didn't want to work on things and he left for someone else. I don't think he left for someone else because he didn't want to work on things. I think the relationship was over for him and he became interested in somebody else. And he didn't want to work on it with you because he was already into somebody else and was going to leave you for them. And I know that's so painful when you've been with somebody a long time. But I'm willing to bet, Cameron, that you had a lot of signs well before that day when he actually left that he wasn't into it. But what I hear happening here is you really want a relationship and you're trying to hold it together single-handedly at any cost, ignoring signs that the guys you're seeing have sort of decided no. You know, I think you're going in too fast. Here's the thing. People who are traumatized, we don't always get to go at the same speed as everybody else because a lot of details about who somebody is and where they're coming from can't be detected in the first months, okay? You need time to find out where they're coming from. Lots of men would be delighted to have a fling with you. And so if you're going to read that as they are interested in you, you could be wrong. If they go out with you for 7 months, 3 months, you're talking about, they gave it a try, but it wasn't ultimately that interesting to them. And a lot of people, not just men, but I can tell you for sure, men don't want to hurt you. And if you keep saying, well, I'll fit myself to your modified expectations or your modified requirements, of you're not really going to call me that much or see me that much, which you described doing, they will stick around to avoid hurting you and to have the convenience of a sort of backup girlfriend while they figure out their next move. And I'm not painting them as bad people. I think you're overly blaming them for this dynamic. And I really want to encourage you to look at how you decide to ignore red flags and set your expectations on people who are not giving you signals that they can meet those expectations. Here's the thing. Dating is a way to find out if somebody is the one you want to date again, okay? There's no way in 3 months you can figure out if somebody's the one for you. There's no way. This is a long-term process. So you date for a while, keeping much of yourself and your expectations in reserve while you get to know them, while you hang out with them a little bit, get to know see if there's red flags that come up. When those red flags show themselves, everybody's got some little ones at least, right? And when they show up, Ideally, you do not want to have already slept with them. You don't want to have already done that, because that's where you bond as a woman, and especially as a woman with attachment wounds from what happened to you in the past. You bond with them, and what I hear you feeling is being very let down, as if they were a committed partner, and they're not. In the early months, there isn't that kind of commitment. Two people can decide they're not going to date other people, okay? That's one thing. But you can't really say, like, I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to be the person who pays attention to your emotional needs. I will take responsibility for being that person to you. We're going to, build a life together. So I heard some signs here where I think you may have missed that. I hear the echo, you were saying that you felt, you were talking about your childhood. When I hear your childhood wounds talking here, that I have an energetic block that says love isn't going to work out for you. Childhood wound talking, okay? I feel like every man's happy to see me walk out of his life when they've had enough of me. That's a childhood wound talking. All right, it also sounds scarily similar to how you might have felt as a child about your dad's lack of commitment to you. Every time I really want to believe these men, they say they really like me in the beginning. They can really like you in the beginning, but that doesn't mean they're going to fall in love with you. It doesn't mean they want to have a relationship with you, but it means they want to date you, okay? That's what they're telling you. Dating is getting to know you. And I know, like, for normal people in our culture, lots and lots of people will have sex during the dating process. But I want you to consider postponing that, because that's where it's very hard to keep your expectations out of it. But most men will certainly be happy if you would like to share sex with them. That's just fine with them. That, because they do that, does not mean they've decided that they're in love with you or you're the one, all right? It's just something that some people do in dating, which is very hard for people with attachment wounds. And we feel like we have to play along, like, oh yeah, I know, you've got to be you. You have to be yourself, right? Nobody's going to fall in love with anybody except the real you. Your fake you might be able to prevent a guy from leaving or getting fed up with you, but the fake you is not going to ever get anybody to fall in love with them. Only real you can do that, because falling in love, it's a very deep thing. There's limerence. You don't want anybody's limerence. If you could have it, you wouldn't want it, believe me. All right, okay, so right when I start to like them and open up for the possibility to commit, which usually takes some weeks for me, that's where I was like, oh, okay, there it is. No, you can't commit in weeks. You cannot commit in weeks. That's not real. That is not real. You can decide not to date other people, by mutual agreement, or by yourself decide to do that. But a commitment is a big deal. I would say, you can gradually get to know somebody and gradually take an interest in making a commitment. But what is a commitment? What is it, a marriage? So, I think less than 18 months is completely way too fast for a traumatized person to decide on marriage. So let's just go with that, all right? Marriage is what you want, and I think that's good. That's your heart's desire. There's nothing wrong with that. I want you to have that. But if that's what you want, you're going to have to be very, very discerning about the dating phase and eliminate people who are not into you or otherwise don't fit what you need. You need to be very clear. The only people you can date are people who are into you, not just on the first date or the second date, but they continue to be into you and it's going somewhere. And I like that you ask them questions about, okay, so you want a relationship, you want more kids. Those are all good questions to ask. So good job on that. But what you're mistaking that just because he wants a relationship and wants kids doesn't mean he's saying, green light, come on in, I'm going to do those things with you. That's not what he said. All right. He just said he's available for that. Now you date him for 12 to 18 months to see, should you do those things with him? Minimum 12 to 18 months. My husband and I dated for 5 years before we got married. We got engaged at 3. I found it hard. I was trying to, step on the gas for that. I already had kids. There were a lot of reasons why I wanted to be married, but it was so sane. Waiting. We were both divorced people, and you're not divorced. I hope you never will be. But that's how you do it. You take your time really finding out if you're compatible with somebody. All right. So you said, as soon as I open up for the possibility to commit, which takes some weeks. Well, I just think a lot of people dating you, if after some weeks you said, I want to commit, I would be scared that there was something odd there. I would pull back. All right. I think that might be where it's going wrong. That's why I've done a lot of talking to you here about, like, look at how you're taking the expectations and pushing them to the very beginning of the relationship. I totally understand. That's totally how I roll, left to my own devices. But I know that I have to slow things down. I know that I have to sort of set aside my gut feeling, like, this is it, we should get married. I have to set that aside and pay attention to the information that's coming to me. And I need to let it take time. Anybody can look like Mr. Right for a few months. You know, I've heard it said it takes about 2 years for people to show their true colors. So, you know, if you had these difficult parents and this painful childhood, you know, it's almost certain you're going to end up kind of with a little bit of a blind spot for going for men who are like that. And to help yourself to discern, you need to be discerning. You need to take your time. You need to not put all your eggs in that basket, you know, just very slowly, just one. You start dating them. Okay, I'm dating you. I'm getting to know you. I'm seeing what you're like on a road trip. I'm seeing how you treat the wait staff when we go out to dinner. I'm seeing how you treat your pet. I'm seeing how you treat, you know, the people on the street. I'm seeing how you treat me. And you're letting information come to you rather than you sitting there with a hammer and a saw, like, I'm going to make a relationship. I'm going to take this person in front of me who I don't know yet, and I'm going to make a relationship with them. I totally get it, but that is a childhood wound talking. That is a childhood wound talking, that there's this urgency to make somebody fit. And that's how we end up doing what I call crap fitting. You know, you don't know if it's a crap fit. Crap fitting is when you fit yourself to unacceptable people and situations. There's no way to know in a short amount of time what somebody's true colors are. A lot of times they actually do show you. You get these little hints that there's a problem there, but those of us with childhood PTSD will often just gloss right over it. We have this incredible superpower of being like, I didn't see what I don't want to see because I need this to work because I'm so afraid of ending up alone. Now, everybody has some of that, but we got it real bad. That fear of being alone will make you choose people who are not suitable and then hang on for way too long. And then next thing you know, the years pass. Now, you're 34. You have time. You have time. If having kids is what you want. But what has to change right now is you can't stay in relationships where somebody's not into you. Because you have a blind spot there where it keeps turning out they weren't that into you. They maybe were into the first thing they knew about you. But see, I don't know. I don't know if these people were good or healthy, but they were detecting something about you that they thought might work out, but it didn't work out. And from everything you've told me, I'm going to guess it's that you had these huge commitment expectations that were scaring them off. I think when somebody's truly into you, they're not totally scared by that, but it takes time to be truly into you. If somebody goes, you know, gaga over you and is going to give you the moon after a few weeks, you know there's something wrong with them, not because there's something wrong with you, but because it's just not possible for them to know you. They have some sort of attachment wound that's pushing them in. You can tell. So every healthy person needs to watch out for that. We work on ourselves so that we can be at a certain level of discernment and self-respect and caution and alertness, and then find somebody who matches that. So I think you might be dating people who have the characteristics that you could cultivate in yourself, of being thoughtful about that. So obviously, you don't seem to have any trouble attracting somebody in the first place. And that's lucky. That's good. Not everybody has an easy time with that. So they say they really like you. So the last guy you dated for 3 months said he was seeking a relationship. He wanted to go on vacation together 4 weeks in. So I think that's too fast. That sounds like a person who doesn't have trauma, or a person who does have trauma and doesn't know how to set boundaries. I think a vacation is a great way to find out, you know, what you really have with somebody, but 4 weeks is way too soon for that. I could see, I don't know, at 3 months, you know, one little, weekend trip or something. But even that, since I don't really recommend getting into a sexual relationship too quickly with people, I want you to ask yourself really honestly, is that really something that you can do without all of your attachment mechanisms, which are mostly good and natural, but a little bit messed up from your childhood? That's going to kick in, and it can kind of what's the dating word for it? Like datingzilla, bridezilla, like there's going to be a wedding and bridezilla, it's this archetype of a woman who just like goes crazy in a really negative way. Okay, well, we do that. We do that around dating, right? And sex activates it. So the longer you can postpone that, the more you can find out what you really have in common. And every person has to decide what they can manage with that. If you agree with me that that's an important way to first find out if somebody, what's so great is if you haven't slept with somebody yet and they end up treating you in a disrespectful way or discarding you, there's very little wound. It doesn't hurt as bad. It just isn't as personal. That's what sex is for. It's like a personal connection. Everything feels more personal after that. So you can think about that. But I recommend waiting. Wait. So he said that. He said he wanted to have more kids. He already had kids. You said, but he knew that you wanted to have a baby at some point. But that just doesn't, I'm just not buying that early on. It was a promise that, he wants to have a kid with you. Just that he wants to have more kids in his life. And he's dating, and maybe he'll meet the one he can do that with. So you tried to play safe. You asked him all the questions you needed to know, and that's good. So what you found out is that it was possible that he could become that person. There's no obstacle. He does want those things, but that doesn't mean that the thing is going to happen between you. But it's good. It's good you asked that, because if he had said, I don't want more kids, or I don't want to get married, or I don't want a relationship, you could end it right there. You could just go, I'm sorry, I think we have a misalignment here in what we want. And then you just go on your way, and then have that empowered feeling of knowing you stood up for what you actually want. So then he turned cold. He turned cold when you started saying you wanted commitment. And just like, connect the dots here. Connect the dots. He was interested. I think you showed your hand too soon. There's an energy with that. And even if you control the words you say, there's an energy that we give off for what we're feeling. Our nervous systems talk to each other. So when you're sitting there feeling like, I'm going to die if this doesn't work out, like other people can feel that. They feel a pressure. And, the funny thing is, it's just not something you can fix on command. Even if beating yourself up about it doesn't work. I'm just telling yourself, I'll just act cavalier. That doesn't work. We have to genuinely become somebody who cares to go slowly. That's what it is. And that's not done overnight. It's done as a day-to-day way of life, but you getting very honest with yourself about what you want and how you might have seen that that the people you were dating, just really look at the pattern. Just really look at the pattern. The pattern is trying to tell you something. So then he was pulling away and you felt the dreadful anxiety you already know. Boy, do we know that feeling. I knew it was over. I felt it in my gut. Good, see, your gut was smart, but you couldn't end it. And you were constantly guessing what went wrong. And you weren't the priority. He wasn't reaching out. And he made hurtful comments. And you felt like you were dying on a soul level. And I circled that because it's like you were not dying on a soul level. Somebody you were dating for a few months decided this was not the one for them. You were not dying. If your life depends on that, I just want to help you see, like, people can feel that. That's not right. It's not their responsibility. It telegraphs to them that there's something wrong, that you're living through a wound right now. And I don't know. I don't know if the people you were dating had it together or not, but I'll just say healthy people don't want to date somebody who come into it with like life and death desperation after 3 months. Healthy people want to see somebody who expects the best out of them and would walk if it's not very good. They want to see self-respect, right? So I know you're having trouble manufacturing that right now, but you do not have to get a guy to love you to develop your self-respect, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So you felt like you were dying on a soul level and that you were imprisoned in that situation. You were imprisoned not by him, but by your trauma wounds, by your attachment wounds. You were afraid of the feeling that you get when things end. There's a name for that for traumatized people. It's called abandonment melange, and it's awful. And it's way worse than what non-traumatized people feel and people who don't have that abandonment wound. It's an emotional flashback of a special kind that is just brutal, so intense. And it makes you feel like you're dying on a soul level. And you'll see that sort of language in poetry and rock songs and stuff. But really, your soul doesn't die because somebody's not into you. I promise you. I promise you. when he said you could date other men, I assume that was in response to you saying, I could be dating other people and you're just not even spending time with me. And he's like, okay, we'll do that. He just sounds like somebody who didn't have the courage to say directly, you know what, I just want to end it. If he didn't really have anything else to go to, it's convenient to have you there, to keep the door open to having a date with you now and then, as long as he can sort of manage that. But you just don't want to be that person. That's fine if everybody feels completely neutral about each other, but you didn't. Like, you were in love with him and he was not in love with you. And I know it sucks, but it's like there's so much of that in dating. And if there's any way you can sort of hold back on falling in love, I know we don't always have control over it, but you can delay it by taking time, not spending all your time with him, and staying connected to other women who understand the perils of dating and the perils of rushing in, and who can help you and help you structure your life so that you have love and connection, whether this guy is into you or not. It's not like everything depends on it. You tried all the strategies you could do to make it work. So I just want to tell you, for the guy, that's kind of a turnoff. If he treats you badly and you just start trying harder, I'll tell you what, I'll give you my whole heart. I'll do this. I'll take care of everything for you. That's like really signaling like something's wrong. You don't value yourself. He doesn't have to give you love, to have all the goodies from you. So I think when you told me that, you know that that's a trauma reaction. So you tried giving him the cold shoulder. You tried talking about it. You tried setting boundaries. Your boundary would be, I just don't date somebody who's behaving this way. But I'm guessing that what you mean is what a lot of people do when they're in a trauma reaction like this, is after a lot of sort of grasping and desperation, then they try making rules like, you can't do this unless you da-da-da-da-da. It's an experiment to see, just like grasping at straws, trying a bunch of strategies to see, can I yank your chain so that you want me again? That's not a boundary, that's manipulation. And I'm sorry to be very hard on you about that, but I want you to see that. That's not a boundary. A boundary is where you walk away. A boundary is where you're in touch with, I will date somebody if they're treating me at X level, but if it drops below that, I'm going to go. That's the boundary. You can give somebody a heads up, like, if I don't hear from you at least twice a week, this doesn't really interest me. You can tell them that, but then they do it or they don't do it. Your boundary is to leave. So anyway, you tried all these things wildly, but it just got worse, which doesn't surprise me. And he even said you could date other men. Ouch, yeah, but yeah. And you say, I felt very used by this man, because he took all my emotional energy and giving almost nothing in return. So I'm going to reframe that for you. And this is some tough love. But in a way, you were using him to be your ideal of a relationship that you want to cobble together, even though he's not the one and is not really interested in that. And you were trying to make it work for him in every way possible. So I don't think he was using you. I think you were offering to him, I'll put up with this, I'll do that. I'll just be into you even though you're not treating me right. So you were trying to, fit him into this ideal you had for a relationship. He was just kind of doing what you offered. And then you say he took all your emotional energy. No one can take your emotional energy. Well, I could see scenarios where he did this, but you gave him all your emotional energy, and it was ill-advised to do that. You gave it to him while giving almost nothing in return. So he was giving you nothing, right? You were giving him everything. Can you see? Like, who did that? Did he mislead you? I don't think so. He was pulling away. Now, a perfect gentleman would say, I realize my feelings have changed, and even though I'd rather have the convenience of you being around to go out with me now and then while I gradually figure out if I really feel like I'm not into you, they would be honest and say, I think I'm not feeling it. I may need some time to see if I feel it, but I'm not feeling it right now. The only reason any of us leaves a relationship is because we're not into it. Okay, that's what's going on. And so you had said this thing. He said the reason he ended it was that he's afraid of getting hurt again if he fully let himself like me. My gut tells me that's not really what it was. That's something that people say. And sometimes when we really want the relationship to work, we fill in the blanks and help them say that to us. But they're trying not to hurt you. And there's not really a way around hurting you, but a lot of people they don't know what to say. They feel uncomfortable in the situation of telling you directly, I'm just not feeling it. I tried, but I just realized I don't feel that. And I'm just wondering, I think you've had the same feeling. You talk about people who are available. So this is interesting. You told me this after the story where you say nobody wants you. You're like, all these people who are healthy did want you and you couldn't do it because you thought they'd find out. Sounds a little bit like a intellectualization of the whole thing. But whatever your reason was, if that was really the thought process, this is going to be tough to hear. But some of us, when we were treated badly as kids and the love was pulled away from us, the way we were treated by our parents shapes our emotional, romantic, and sexual attraction. It shapes when our feelings leap in and, take over what we feel about somebody. And what can happen is you end up eroticizing abandonment. Suddenly that's what feels so incredibly exciting, like lightning has struck. Whereas somebody who's like a solid person, who's like, I'm interested in you, just like, I don't know, that's boring. I feel nothing here. And that is a trauma symptom. There is a way to heal that, but you don't really heal it by going out with the ones who are dangling you and, running away from you. That's not how you heal it. That's how you keep picking the scab. You might need some time alone, and you need some time to really, really face your trauma wound. I'm not a huge advocate that you have to go back and relive your past. I'm a big advocate that you have to face the feelings that come up right now. The fearful and resentful feelings that you're no good, that these guys are just using you. I'll get pushback in the comments, I know, but anybody who really wants to change this pattern, I'm really going to say, you've got to take back your own power and your own agency and realize no one can use you without your permission. If you're not in jail or handcuffed or something, or a gun to your head, you have a choice about where you are. You are giving your romantic energy, you're giving your sexuality to somebody who is not actually in the place that you require. You're changing yourself. You're trying to move the goalpost in your mind and be like, no, this is good. I can accommodate this. I can make this work. I think he'll come around. But that's how it happens. That's how it happens. It can be hard to believe that if you were to just be a little bit more passive and perceptive and just sort of let information come to you in the dating process, let it take time, let them really tell you where they're coming from and never try to like drag it out of them, right? That things could go very differently, but you might think doing that, your mind, your trauma wound will tell you, I can't sit on my hand. If I don't like make it happen right now, I'll never have it. I'll never get to have the good thing. That's how it happens. So it's a bold experiment to let go a little bit, to let them come to you, to let men present to you their interest in you, and then to proceed slowly. See if they ask you out, see if they call you afterwards. I'm going to suggest to you, check out my dating course. This is what it's about. The very first thing I have people do in my course is to name what it is that you want. What's your ideal life and what's your ideal person? And what are the deal breakers for you? And you'd be surprised. 99% of the people who come into my programs are not totally clear about this. They've suffered a lot in relationships. They feel let down that they didn't get what they want, but they have a really hard time being specific about what they want. So you need a chance to get very clear what you want. And the thing is, when you know what that is and you write it down, you have just equipped yourself to make a rational decision when you're dating somebody if they warrant caring about, falling in love with, dating a second time, a 10th time. So you don't just like date them and hope that they come in and sort of save the day and make it into the thing that you want and thinking, I'll know it is what I want when I feel it. Like, I think that's a little bit reckless. You will feel it. You clearly have demonstrated you're capable of falling in love, but not yet with somebody who feels, who's matched with you in the pacing and the depth of the feeling. So your healing is right in front of you, and everything that you do on your own to heal up your expectations, your vision of yourself, and then your willingness to recognize the signs that it isn't what you want, and then the strength to step away. When you have those things, you start to have a tremendous readiness to meet somebody. And I tell you what, that's that confidence in yourself to have real boundaries about what you date and what you don't date. is very attractive. It's irresistible, okay? So give it a try. If anybody here wants to check out that dating course, I'll just put a link to it right here, and I will see you very soon.